The movie today is The Green Slime. I'll meet you at Mystery Science Theater 3000.
This time we watched the KTMA pilot episode, The Green Slime.
The episode that started it all with a kaiju, a slime, science fiction, but no one's ever seen it before.
And this is going to be a weird episode, everyone. First off, it's not a normal episode. This episode is just a short proof of concept pilot that they made to convince some guy at KTMA to let them make the show.
It seems amazing to me that they had to do something of this level for their local public access television station.
It's not a public access station.
Okay, you're right.
Just a UHF station.
It's more, but still, like...
They had to, they were getting a little bit of money for it, and somebody had to pay for it. But either way, they don't riff the entire movie, but they do have host segments, and some unofficial archivists have made it available on YouTube, and we might bend our rules about linking to unofficial releases like that, because this is an interesting historical tidbit that more people should see.
And the tidbit that's online doesn't just include what was submitted to KTMA, but it also includes Joel and a few others on like a panel discussion introducing it and giving it a little bit of context. So sometimes when you're watching the episode, you're not sure whether the riffs are coming from them in the room or whether it's coming from the actual pilot episode piece that they submitted.
That's right, because we have this because it was shown at a MST3K con in 2008. And thank goodness, because it's lovely to have.
Mm-hmm.
We're also going to be a little weird this time around because we are in the same room right now.
Hi, Chris.
Hello, Charlotte.
I guess I could say that even if we weren't in the same room.
Yeah, I think we usually do say hi to each other when we record because we're not monsters. But either way, we're here in the same room, so this recording will be a little bit funny. I didn't bring my entire studio with me. We're just recording into one mic. We're hoping it all sounds nice, but you know what? This is the pilot episode of MST3K we're talking about, and if they can be a little bit lo-fi and dodgy, why not us?
Sure, we're dodgy all the time, but now we're lo-fi too.
Exactly. So we nevertheless have a little bit of follow-up. Devoted listener Lars on our Discord said, I was very excited to learn Chris uses what I refer to as the walking on sunshine method to get rid of earworms.
Do you think that there's a different palate cleanser for different eras of music?
Maybe. I mean, Walking on Sunshine and Tom's Diner are only about 5 years apart. So
in my mind, they're a decade apart.
Sure.
One of them is the 80s and one of them is the 90s.
Something like that.
And it may just be a matter of what is your favorite genre of music. You're going to have a favorite in there that helps to clean out the jumbled mess that comes from other musical types.
It's true. I think it's going to be different music for different people. It has to be a song that is catchy, but you love it and you can stand having it in your head. Walking on Sunshine is a great choice.
It's true.
Have you tried this method yet, or are you still getting songs stuck in your head?
I'm still getting songs stuck in my head, although since you suggested Tom's Diner, I've tried that a couple of times, but all it does is get Tom's Diner stuck in my head, so then I just have a different earworm, and sometimes it goes back to the other earworm. It's a jumbled mess inside my mind.
That's a normal part of the process. The whole point is that you're going to get Tom's Diner stuck in your head, and you're going to enjoy that more. And then eventually that will not linger in the head so much. So listeners, if you too have tried this method and you have a song that you want to recommend for it, write in. We can make this an ongoing segment.
Will it have theme music though? Catchy theme music?
If I did that, everybody would have to use the method to get rid of the catchy theme music. So we'll see. But we should talk about this weird little pilot episode.
That sounds great, Chris. This time, we watched the KTMA pilot, The Green Slime. And although the pilot doesn't include much of the movie, we decided to watch it anyway. So, in the not-too-distant future, a group of people on Earth complained that nothing ever happens around here. Friends, We know that is movie code for stuff is about to go down. Cue the asteroid. Suddenly, there's an enormous asteroid careening its way to Earth, and it's going to destroy us all at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. But that's just 10 hours away. Fortunately, we know just the guy to send on a suicide mission to blow up the asteroid and save the world. No, not Bruce Willis, Jack Rankin. Jack is sent up to the space station, where a crew and some space stuff have been gathered for him to use. In fact, his former best friend Vince Elliott was in charge of gathering these necessities. And while there's no time to go into it, the reason they aren't friends anymore has to do with a love triangle with a hot doctor that Vince sort of won, but not really because she still harbors feelings. Whatever, that's not important. What is important is that a scientist weasels his way into the mission to study the asteroid that Jack and Vince are still destroying no matter what. The crew goes to the asteroid to place the detonation devices, but this scientist gets super excited by some glowing green slime. Hey, that's the name of the movie. He puts it in a jar and runs back to the ship, and Jack, however, will have none of this slime coming back. There isn't time! So he slaps the jar of slime out of the scientist's hand. The jar breaks and some slime splashes onto someone's spacesuit. With the time for asteroid destruction pushed up, the crew turns on the bombs and gets off the asteroid super fast. Whoosh! The crew barely outruns the blast to return safely to the space station. They saved the world, so let's have a party. Jack and Vince man wrestle over the hot doctor with their words and their fierce glares. But there's no time to go into that storyline because the green slime. Remember the green slime on the spacesuit? It creeps, it leaps, it glides across the floor, and it eats energy, so it's loving all the people and machinery. It goes on a killing spree, as one does when one's hungry and growing into a green rubber monster with red crab claws and one big eye. Jack's work's not done now. This monster's terrorizing the ship. It's a killing machine, and no one knows exactly where it is. But when they see it, there's lots of ineffectual firing of lasers. Ineffectual because every drop of its green slime blood spawns a new monster. Jack realizes he must trap the monster on the space station, evacuate all the people, and blow up the space station to kill the monster. Kaboom! The crew retreat to Earth. They just saved the Earth a second time, but set back space exploration decades. Oh, and Vince died, so Jack won the love triangle. No word yet on what the hot lady doctor thinks about all that, but if it was Sigourney Weaver, she'd rather just have a cat. The end.
Meanwhile, on the Satellite of Love, there's no theme song yet, but we begin with the quiet bleeps and bloops that the Satellite of Love will make for years to come. And then Joel Hodgson, still with long hair, sits at the Satellite of Love console and says, "Hello, is anybody out there?" And then he introduces himself as Joel Hodgson, not Joel Robinson. And he also says that the Satellite of Love is a space station of his own design. And then he lets us people of Earth know that today's movie is The Green Slime, and he'll meet us inside the Mystery Science Theater 3000. And then the very first door sequence, which is just like office doors and locker doors opening one after the other. Super weird, super cute. Anyway, Joel stumbles into the theater. The Shadowrama effect is already worked out. And during the opening scenes, he makes one comment, and then he shuffles out. Back on the bridge, Joel is joined by Crow and Beeper. Beeper is a metallic gray early draft of Tom Servo who speaks in beeps that only Crow can understand. Well, I say beeps, but it's more like if R2-D2 was voiced by one of the Three Stooges. Anyway, Joel says hello again to the people of Earth and asks them to get a message to the president, Reagan, that he doesn't really like his TV shows very much, except maybe some of the early episodes of Death Valley Days. Anyway, then he shares an invention, a version of the chiropractic helmet that would reappear in season 1 and during those opening credit sequences. So, anyway, Crow and Joel watch another minute of the movie, and then Joel actually makes a joke during the movie, so that's neat. And then we're back to the bridge to meet GPC. She also can't talk. And Joel keeps saying good boy to her, so maybe she's not a she yet? Anyway, Joel says that there are like 25 other bots on the ship, and he's programmed them all to laugh at his jokes, which only helps so much with being all alone in space. Back in the theater with Joel, Crow, and Beeper for a scene from towards the end of the movie with no riffs, and then we're back for a tour of the satellite. The only other living creatures on the ship are these vacuum flowers, and one of them is a little sick, and it's squirting up foam. GPC gives the flower a sniff, and she gets sick too, somehow. It seems real unpleasant for her, but then it's movie sign, and she manages to join Joel and Crow in the theater for a few wordless seconds. So then we go back to the deck, and Crow tells Joel that the thermometer he's been using on GPC is actually a rectal thermometer. Womp womp. GPC faints, and Joel and Crow carry him out. Okay, so now Joel is using he, him pronouns for GPC, so that mystery is solved. But now, Beeper is foaming, and as Joel tries to clean up Beeper, he comes down with the foam too. Oh no! Joel watches the last few seconds of the film alone, quietly, and applauds when it ends. And then back on the ship, everyone's doing okay again. Crow tries to figure out what was going on with the foam, and amongst his possible reasons why everything was happening, maybe it's all just a show. Joel asks why Crow never squirted out any of the foam, and Crow says he was waiting until the end to do it, and then he squirts magnificently. The end. And that's where it all began, 30-something years ago.
Ooh, it was amazing, right? Like, so I know we say like, oh, KTMA, like so much of the show was already formed, but a lot of it's already formed here in the proof of concept before there's even MADS, before there's even a Deep 13, before there's even a Gizmonics Institute. So much of the show is already here. I found it quite charming. What did you think?
I think it's very charming. I think it's interesting that, this is a little bit because of how we were shown what we've been shown of the pilot, because generally speaking, we all seem to think that this is actually a trimmed down version of the pilot with more of the movie taken out. Because, of course, they didn't riff a lot in the very first episodes of KTMA. So that would have been a little bit boring for the conventioneers.
Mm-hmm.
We know that there were other bits filmed because the very first ad for this upcoming new show, Mystery Science Theater 3000, includes other riffs from the Green Slime, and they act as if the Green Slime is going to be one of the episodes they do, which of course they never did do.
Mm-hmm. It seems kind of strange though, because they have the door sequence in that ad, because of course this YouTube thing that we are going to link to inside of our show notes includes the ad that KTMA would later show. So it replaces the office door and the lockers and all of that with an actual door sequence.
Right. So yes, by that point they've been approved and they made the title sequence and the door sequence and all the other fun stuff. But my point is that us watching this pilot now, it seems like the focus is not on the movie riffing, which is what eventually most people would see as synonymous. This was going to be much more of a little show that introduces the movie and has little entertaining segments around it.
So like the original concept was more like the Elvira model of, I am just introducing this old horror movie from 50 years ago, and I'm going to be kind of campy and fun about it, but I'm not actually interacting with the movie very much. It was more like that, and then it became a riffing thing. It's kind of that you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're still in the theater even in this segment, and they still make a joke or two and point out a thing or two about the movie, but the focus of where the energy of the writing is going is not on the riffing like it, of course, would be for most of the show. Anyway, that's interesting that at least that's one of the big takeaways. And the other big takeaway is Beeper.
Yeah, Beeper's kind of cute.
Beeper is kind of cute. I think Josh didn't want to play Beeper because he was limited in how expressive he could be by just making beeps and boops and
that is very
Three
true.
Stooges noises.
I mean, how do you, if riffing, okay, at the time they didn't know the riffing was going to be where it was going, but with riffing being the way that it went, it's definitely important that Beeper became Tom Servo.
They made the right choice.
Yeah.
And the idea that there are like 25 other bots in the ship showed where Joel was thinking that he would be making a lot more of these bots and they would populate it. And we'd get to see that eventually in the Netflix seasons.
Yes, there are more bots then.
But not so much in the first couple of years, which is fine. Anything else about how the show was introduced or framed that you thought was interesting?
I mean, they already have a door sequence. They already have this idea of being on the satellite, of a person living in space on his own, that he built the bots. We don't have the sense of it's like, I have no control over when I watch the movies anymore because I built the bots, which I always find to be a really charming part of the opening credits, is the like, yeah, Joel, you sort of screwed yourself over there. You might have been able to stop the movies when they were awful, but now you have to watch them all the way through and that you're not in control. But it very much seems like the spaceship is his own design, the bots are his own design, and thus the watching of the movies as the use of his time is his own design too, which is a really different way to think about this show.
Yeah, he just introduces the movie right off the top. Like, we're going to be watching The Green Slime. That's our movie this week. Okay. Like,
Yeah.
and obviously, it's a thing where he's presenting it to the KTMA guy and being like, we're going to show the movies that you're showing anyways. Just make it more exciting by putting up my little bumpers around it. That makes total sense. But I'm glad that they fleshed out some of the rationale behind that for the main series.
Well, I mean, if everybody's going to be complaining about having to watch bad movies, it's nice to know, well, we have to. We don't have the choice of the movie. And to have some sort of reason, right, for why we are watching it. It's an evil experiment. We've all suspected that Hollywood's been doing that anyway for years. Why not?
Why not? What did you think of the sketches?
They were cute and funny. Lots of physical humor, like the squirting of the foam and everybody getting sick and spraying stuff all over the place. But that was lots of fun. I love Joel with his 80s long hair.
Yeah.
Like that's an amazing detail. I just fawn over it for a little bit. What did you think?
I enjoyed the sketches, for what they were. A nice little introduction to it. They had a little through line. It was a lot more bodily humor, or in the sense of it, oh, that's a rectal thermometer. Oh no, you've been using me. Yeah, there's a lot more of that sort of humor, but whatever, it's all good. And it was just a little slice of pleasant. I don't know. Got to hang out with them. We got to meet all the different bots that were on the ship at the time.
All the bots went into the theater and in different configurations, which was super interesting. I kind of wish that had continued into the series, where it wasn't always Crow and Tom going in. It was, I guess you couldn't have Beeper and GPC in there at the same time because neither of them use words. It would just be a lot of, oh, oh.
It would. Yeah, we see that in the first couple episodes of KTMA where Joel is sometimes alone in the theater, sometimes just joined by Crow, sometimes just joined by Tom. But, I think they found the groove that works, and then the occasional very special episode where GPC or the Mads end up in the theater or whatever. So.
Oh, definitely putting the Mads in the theater later on. Did that only come about after the Netflix era?
No.
That happened earlier too?
In
Okay.
a few of the earlier episodes as well. I don't know if we've done any of them yet, though.
Oh.
I can't remember because
the future.
I can't remember anything anymore. That's how podcasting works. I don't know. Do you think that if you were in a low budget local UHF station and you were presented with this way to fill 2 hours of time on your network just by showing the same movies that you were already showing, but you could spend a few dollars to get something sparkly and new, would this win you over?
I have to say yes, because quite honestly, his proof of concept looks like he did not spend much money making it. And it really does enhance the viewing of the movie and gives you something to anchor different movies, right? So it's not just like, it's Thursday night and we're watching a movie. Like, we are watching a movie with our friends and it's already that setup. But yeah, it doesn't look expensive. but it looks like an interesting addition to watching a movie like The Green Slime, which I'm just going to say, as a casual viewer, I don't know if I would have made it through this whole movie without them. I didn't make it through the whole movie with them. I made it through on my own and had to write a movie summary. And I'm going to tell you folks, so much better with Joel. I wish he'd been there with me.
Well, let's talk a little bit about this movie that we don't really get to see in the episode as we have it now. We watched The Green Slime a few days ago. I have forgotten most of it, except that I didn't find it especially interesting, and I appreciated your summary for reminding me of some of the details, like the scientist, who I'd completely forgotten about, despite having the most interesting face that isn't on a creature in that movie.
Sure. What, you don't like your, like, square-jawed hero who gives no care about people and it wants to be in charge, and that's what it takes to be a good commander. You don't have to think of people. Like, you didn't like his look? He was very classic.
Yeah, he was a little too classic, I found.
Fair
a little
enough.
too just like everyone else.
And your milquetoast, sandy-haired, military haircut guy, you didn't find him to be visually compelling?
No.
What about your Bond girl?
She was fine. She was fine.
Do you like that sort of thing?
But, like, the doctor guy had a real slab of a face. He was fun to look at.
He had a slab of a face.
I wasn't saying he's hot. I'm saying he's interesting to look at.
Do you think that he was more interesting to look at before the green slime killed him or after the green slime killed him?
I mean, I wouldn't recommend that makeover, but the green slime creatures were also pretty cute.
Oh, they reminded me of Yo Gabba Gabba characters.
Yeah.
The green one crossed with the single-eyed red rubber monster. It was a perfect combination of the two. Add crab claws.
The monsters were super cute, and yet that didn't save the movie from being kind of a slog.
Well, I mean, the monsters, it's kind of like Beast of Yucca Mountain. You don't see the monsters until fairly close to the end, and there's a whole bunch of, like, pretend story before. We have to save the world before we even get the green slime to the energy that makes him into the monsters. There's a whole plot.
Beast of Hollow Mountain before anyone writes in, not Beast of Yucca Flats.
Sure. Beast of Hollow Mountain, all of you are correct. You were right to think about writing in.
Let's say a little bit about the background of this movie, because it's kind of a little bit interesting in that this movie was made in Japan. The director is a Japanese director, Kinji Fukasaku, but the cast is not Japanese.
No, none of them.
None of them. They're speaking in English.
Mm-hmm.
And
all the American archetypes are there.
Exactly.
You even have a love triangle.
Well,
that doesn't seem like something I would have had in my Megalon versus Godzilla.
Well.
Oh.
Because there is a Japanese release of this film that they made at the same time, possibly slightly earlier, like a few weeks earlier.
With a completely different cast?
With a Japanese dubbing over the English-speaking actors. And they trimmed it a little bit for the Japanese market by getting rid of the love triangle.
Perfectly reasonable choice.
I know.
It added nothing.
It was so
to the
obligatory.
Plot. Yes. It was very much this story is the brainchild of somebody from the West who knows that in order to sell to a Western audience, you have to have some sort of a love interest thing going on and a competition between men because what could be more American?
Yeah. The director, by the way, I'll just point out, Kinji Fukasaku was a generally successful director. He had a long career and many successful movies, the most notable of which, from my point of view, is a movie that came out in the year 2000 called Battle Royale, a very violent movie that inspired...
The Hunger Games.
Well, and also an entire genre of video games like Fortnite.
Oh, well, I mean... Am I remembering correctly that Battle Royale was a manga before it was a show?
It was based on a novel, which was later made into a manga or maybe several manga, depending I don't know. I'm just looking at the Wikipedia page
Yeah.
right now to check on that.
Fair enough. I just remember when the Hunger Games came out, there were a lot of people who were just like, yeah, this is just Battle Royale, everybody. Like, this existed beforehand. And, like, how much Suzanne Collins knew about Battle Royale when she was writing the Hunger Games, I certainly don't know. But it was very much part of the talk when Hunger Games was coming out as a book. And again, of course, when it came out as a movie.
Yeah, exactly. It had been a sort of underground hit and championed in the U.S. and championed by people like, I believe Oliver Stone really liked the film and talked it up.
Ooh.
Oliver Stone? No.
Quentin Tarantino? Yeah, that seems more like Tarantino's bag.
Sorry, I don't know how I confused them for a moment.
You know.
Anyway, they also, in addition to removing the romantic subplot, they changed the score a bit.
Oh.
So the original score was by a guy. This is a scorner now, I guess, a little micro scorner. It was originally by Toshiaki Tsushima. He did a lot of Japanese films and TV shows. We would be most familiar with his work for doing the score for Saru no Gundam, a.k.a. The Thing That Became Time of the Apes.
Ooh.
Rift in Season 3 and during the KTMA era.
Mm-hmm. He's credited in our American Green Slime with another music composers, though, correct?
Correct. Charles Fox was brought in to do a lot of music for the U.S. release, including the opening theme song.
Oh my God, the opening theme song is amazing. It's a very 60s, like, it's great.
So good. Charles Fox, of course, should have been able to put a bit of a banger for the theme song because he wrote so many banger theme songs.
Ooh, like?
He wrote the theme for Love American Style.
Love American Style, sure.
The Love Boat.
He just likes love.
Laverne and Shirley.
Also very much about love.
Happy Days, these are the days version, not the rock around the clock version, obviously. He also did the music to ABC Worlds of Sports.
Oh.
Which you'd recognize if you heard it.
Certainly,
if you are
yes.
our
Although
age.
the only sports song that's coming to mind is the Hank Williams Jr. All My Rowdy Friends Are Coming Over for Football
Are you ready
Tonight,
for some football?
which is
Yeah.
not.
No. He wrote the music for several movies, including Puff and Stuff, the H.R. Puff and Stuff movie.
Oh, well, I mean, of course.
9 to 5, not the Dolly Parton song, but just the music behind that. Strange Brew.
I love that movie. He wrote the music for that movie?
He did.
Huh.
And
I feel like I have to watch it again now. I've got a new excuse.
There's always a good reason to watch Strange Brew again. It's about time I rewatched it as well. And he wrote the music of the song Killing Me Softly with his song.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, he did quite a lot. He's still alive. He's 83 years old right now.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't think he's as active as he used to be, and he's earned it. He's given us so much.
Very nice.
Otherwise, in the film, there are a few other familiar faces. As you mentioned, our Dr. Lisa Benson is played by Luciana Paluzzi, who is most known for being a Bond girl from Thunderball, but she also played Iole's maid in a little film called Hercules.
Oh, good job. Good job.
And there's another character who has a smaller role in this movie, Captain Martin. I think he's one of the people back on the base directing things. I didn't go back and double check who he is, but he's played by Robert Dunham, who you might remember is Antonio, King of Seatopia from Godzilla vs. Megalon.
Of course, yes.
One of many American actors who bummed around Japan for a while, who got snatched up for films like these.
I mean, good. What a great way to be in the right place at the right time, you know?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Those are interesting, familiar faces from like both sides, like the Japan and American side of the movie. I just can't imagine this movie. It's already only an hour and a half, and you cut out the love triangle rather, and it's now like an hour and 25 minutes. It seems like such a short movie.
It's closer to an hour 10, but yeah.
What? There's is not 20 minutes of love in this movie,
Well, also the
American
bickering.
style or otherwise.
They also get rid of a lot of the bickering between the two male leads because that's connected to the love
That's
story.
true.
And it's not interesting.
No, because it's just like men competing over what?
Yeah.
What?
I suspect the Japanese edit is much better,
Oh,
but still not very good.
I don't feel compelled to watch the Japanese edit. And I kind of wonder what's going to move me through the opening credits without that kick-ass theme song. Beyond this movie having so many connections between America and Japan, I find that all the time that I was watching this movie, I was reminded of movies that would come later. Like Armageddon, like The Blob.
I think that came before, but yeah.
True. And like Alien.
Yeah.
Like those three movies feel like there are germs inside of this movie that could have grown into something like a mega American blockbuster. So
space germs, even that they might accidentally touch.
Exactly.
So I've
Brought
seen
back with them.
I've seen The Blob, and absolutely this like touching the thing, the mysterious substance that seems to be from space that you probably shouldn't touch, and that causing complications. Absolutely see it, especially because it is just glop until well into the movie when they become creatures.
Very much. And they have shots with it sliding across the wall and going up into some sort of a ventilation system. So there's lots of that. Oh, this is like sentient goo.
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
And then it keeps killing people as well. And it becomes like Alien, which I haven't seen, but which is, I know enough about it to understand that they're all trapped in a ship with an alien life form that they can't figure out where it is or what it's going to do next or how to stop it. And that's very much what the last half of it, or
and they don't understand how it's growing either, which is also an important part that it's not here in this green slime. In the green slime, you do have the scientist guy who accidentally, with the help of Jack, brought the slime on board. He does get a little piece of the blood and starts putting like electrodes onto it and watches it grow with the introduction of some energy. They don't get that inside of Alien, other than their friend who got the what would you call it? The
face sucker.
Yeah, the face sucker, the caterpillar stage, right? Who the caterpillar face sucker gets on his face, like puts the egg down in his belly, like they get to watch his body just like live but do nothing, like he can't respond. They try and get the thing off of him, right? And they can't because it will kill him as opposed to be forced to let go. And then it falls off his face and he wakes up and he's fine. And he has one meal and then he explodes open like the pupa exploding open and letting out the beautiful butterfly. There's the little baby alien who runs away into the ship and they don't know where it is. It could be anywhere. They're trying to find it. They're trying to destroy it. And it is growing into its next stage while that's going. And that's sort of what's happening here with the slime, right? Like it's moved into things. It's starting to suck the energy from different parts of the station and it starts growing into its next stage, which has crab claws and it uses electricity to kill despite having crab claws, which seems like a really good feature for killing people.
Yeah, they mostly use it to crack open nuts, I think.
I mean, and there aren't many nuts on the ship, which is why they have to kill the people.
Exactly. They're so frustrated about the lack of walnuts.
I know, and who wouldn't be? But then once it gets to its end stage, it seems to be a perfect killing machine. You can't hurt it. If you try, it bleeds and its blood becomes another creature. So you can't hurt it. It just makes more of itself. And it's going to keep draining all of the energy. And it can get into your ventilation system and move throughout the ship. Like, I hate to say it, but Jack was right. They had to abandon that entire space station. There was no way else to get rid of that alien.
Oh, yeah, no, he's obviously right. That's perhaps one of the problems of the movie is that there's a right answer and it's presented immediately. And it's like everybody's resisting it because science and yeah, fair enough, but still.
Science and save the people, but they're already electrocuted.
Yeah.
And he's not a very nice guy. I don't understand why he's such everybody's like, oh, what a great commander Jack is. Woo! And no, He's mean.
He is mean, but he gets things done. And that's the version of a good commander, because he's effective and he's willing to make the hard choices that no one else makes. That's very much the thesis of this film.
I guess, yes, it is the thesis of the film. And like, oh, what a shame he retired. Like, Vince is still around and he's such a softie. He cares about saving people. But if we still had Jack in charge, just think of what we would have done in space already. Maybe they would have seen the asteroid more than 10 hours before it was going to kill us.
Exactly. So, I think you're right that there is a good movie hiding inside of this film, which, because that is a scary premise and there's things to be done. And that good movie turned out to be Alien. So that's fine.
But not Armageddon. Let's all acknowledge that Armageddon, while it is the first half of this movie, going out into space and blowing up an asteroid that otherwise would collide with the world, that just didn't turn out to be a good movie. Maybe it's because of what they added to that premise. Perhaps the love story of Armageddon is what destroyed it in terms of being a good story. But I do have to admit the Bruce Willis, Liv Tyler, Ben Affleck, Steve Buscemi, Billy Bob Thornton movie, yeah, it made a lot of money. It made a lot of, and listeners, it made me cry. I'm just going to say it. It made me cry. Because Bruce Willis has to be left behind on the asteroid, and he has to deliver the nuclear warhead into the middle of the asteroid, and he can't leave with it because the detonation of the nuclear bomb isn't going to work without somebody being there to physically press the button. The timer mechanism won't work. And so he pushes Liv Tyler's love interest Ben Affleck into the ship, like punches him and puts him in an elevator so that he gets back on the ship, and Bruce Willis sacrifices his life for the love of his daughter, and they have a very big like radio communique or whatever, where Liv Tyler gets to have tears, beautiful tears streaming down her cheek, saying goodbye to her father, and Bruce Willis talking about how much he loves her.
Yeah.
And yes, weepy, weepy Charlotte at that moment. But
when the effective jerk commander comes back and the other nice guy dies, and the commander who survives says he died a hero and we should give him the highest commendations possible, and tells the big stirring speech about how wonderful his sacrifice was, that didn't get you? You didn't cry?
Shockingly, no. I have to say that, like, Jack, every time he's talking about Vince to other people, he is always talking about him in the most positive light.
Yeah.
Every time he's like, oh no, he makes great decisions. But when he's talking to the girl, he always tells her what a crappy commander he is, and that's why he's ineffective. But he always, to other people, other men, tells everybody how great Vince is and how Vince should be honored.
There you go. So,
and Vince does the same thing in return.
Yeah.
Right? Has lots of compliments for Jack. Yes, Jack is coming on this ship and he will be in charge. And that's the way it's going to be.
It's almost like they added a B plot that didn't need to be there.
What? Love triangles aren't necessary in order to make a movie effective or interesting? Chris, I don't know.
So the reason that we are in the same room together right now is because we've spent the last week doing something completely ridiculous. For reasons that are not relevant to the show and that we're not going to get into, we had a little bit of a road trip this summer.
Road trip!
Going from New York City all the way to Portland, Oregon, and making a few stops along the way. The most important of which, for the purpose of this podcast, is that we stopped in Minneapolis.
It's true.
And this was both your and my first time, or at least...
No, this is my first time inside of the Minneapolis area.
There you go, in the big mini What did they call it? I forget.
I don't know.
They never said it. So I don't know.
No.
We were only there for one night. And
Yeah.
so we didn't get, we're not experts.
No,
Unlike
certainly
most
not.
of the topics we talk about on this show,
Yeah, I mean, usually
we're not full experts on this one. But what did you think about Minneapolis?
I enjoyed our trip to Minneapolis quite a bit, not the least of which because one of my good friends from high school now lives in the Minneapolis area, and we got to see her, which I rarely get to see her because we do not live on the same coast or in the same city anymore. So that was delightful. We didn't go into downtown Minneapolis, so I couldn't pay my respects to Mary Tyler Moore, even though I have a recent love of the show.
Exactly. We were not super far from it. We did go into, because we went to the Walker Art Museum and we saw the big spoon,
true.
and that's downtownish. But time was short for us, and we wanted to prioritize things. So instead, we went to a post office in Hopkins, Minnesota.
And why? Why? That seems like such a non-thing. I couldn't believe when we were there, we were like sending postcards with pictures of Crow and with Tom Servo on it, and the person at the post office didn't even blink. It was like this wasn't a thing. People don't make a tourist stop to the Hopkins, Minnesota post office all the time.
I mean, they do enough that somebody else had done it, and therefore I had the idea that this would be a thing that we could do while we were in town. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe they're just blasé about it there. Maybe not. Certainly, some of the locals that we knew through your friend who grew up in the area were like, "You're going to Hopkins?"
They had family in the area. They had family members who had grown up in Hopkins. So it was like, it's just a suburb. It's just and it's a cute little main street now.
It is now.
Lovely time.
Our understanding is that from the locals is that it was significantly less cute when the show was being made. It was more boring, and therefore the idea of any kind of tourism there didn't really make any sense. But right now, I'll say if you're in Hopkins and you go visit the post office, there's a few other things you can do. There's a lovely bookstore that we stopped in that also had a little restaurant, and it was very nice.
It was lovely.
Yeah, it was very good. There were, was it raspberries that they were mad about in Hopkins?
Yes, there was a raspberry festival. We were a week too early to go to the Raspberry Festival. And supposedly there is one of the largest statues of a raspberry in Hopkins, Minnesota. It was blocks away from where we were, but we just didn't have the time.
We just didn't have the time, listeners. But we did have the time to also make a stop in Eden Prairie and stand outside the building that used to be Best Brains Incorporated, where they filmed the show for so many years.
In a corporate business park that looks just like you imagine a corporate business park from the early 90s, late 80s.
Yeah. It was odd. I mean, partially because I was not 100% sure that this was the right address. It was. The address you can find online is the correct address. I have since gone back and looked at other people's photos and whatnot of it. And said, yeah, that's the building we were at.
Good. We were in the right one.
Or it's a very similar one, because that's how office parks work.
Sure. We could go to one here in Portland and take a picture. It would look the same.
Yeah, kind of. But, and we didn't go inside or anything. It was, I believe it was abandoned for many years after they stopped making the show. I think there is something in there now, but it was very non-showy, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And we weren't interested in getting up in anyone's grill. And,
what would we have seen if we went inside?
Exactly.
It's not like the sets are still in there.
But you can go online. We'll link to a few people who blogged about their visits to the studio, and you can see what their behind the scenes were, in the 90s, which is not when we were there.
No, it's now a good while past the 90s, although my body reminds me it's a good while past the 90s all the time, but in my brain, it's still really close to that time.
The other thing that we happened to see, which is not directly MST3K related, but since we were in the neighborhood, we took a quick stop at a little, also very non-distinct building from the outside. Just white tiles, looked like a office building in an office park kind of thing. But there was a distinct purple sign out front in this very odd shape.
It looks so familiar.
Oh, we had to stop and find out more.
Intrigued. I had no idea that Prince's home, Paisley Park, was available for tours.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And it was delightful when our friends said, like, oh, we could go by Paisley Park. What?
It's right there.
It's right there.
And you need to, sign up in advance if you want to get a tour. We did not do that, and we did not have time to do that. But we did get to go inside. We did get to go to the gift shop.
I got an umbrella that changes color and becomes purple in the rain. I can't wait to use it, and I live in Portland, so I will.
Exactly. It was very neat and charming. And while it didn't make Charlotte cry,
It came close.
So it's not quite as good as Armageddon.
That's the meanest comparison ever, Chris.
But even just being in that space and seeing things just really, like, it hit you in a way that I was
just
surprised
not sure
by.
why. It was so weird. But, like, Prince is amazing. And he contributed so much to the music scene when I was growing up. I really appreciate it so much. And then, of course, there's a connection to your mom, who loved Prince
Also
as
loved
well.
Prince, especially in that era.
Prince was the music that was playing when I got my first speeding ticket.
Exactly.
So,
Which I was in the car for.
You were.
Prince touches us all. It's true. We also got to see a few of the other things that were mentioned. We weren't trying to seek out MST3K things necessarily, but we saw a bunch of Menards. We didn't go into any. We drove past the Wisconsin Dells,
Ooh, yes.
but we didn't really have time to stop and do anything despite your family's love of water parks.
I mean, my kid was with us on this trip, and both he and I would have had a good time at the water slides, but I can't imagine you going on water slides. It would have been a very boring day for you.
That's fine.
And we have a Great Wolf Lodge close by. We can live the Wisconsin Dells in our hearts when we visit other water parks.
Was there anything else about that part of our trip that you want to talk about or think about? Or
I mean, cheese curds.
we had some cheese curds. We picked up some cheese curds in Wisconsin. They were filling. They were very good.
Surprisingly filling and very delicious. Yes.
And then we got to your friend's house and she offered us cheese curds from Minnesota.
Because of course she did. And she offered us hot dish.
We had some hot dish. It was very good. We had a delightful time. I'm sure there's more stuff that we should have seen. It's just an excuse for us to go back someday.
Absolutely.
But do feel free to write in if you have other MST3K specific or just general things that you really love about Minneapolis. We certainly heard of a lot of things that sounded very cool that we wanted to spend time at, but we were chugging all the way across the country and could only do so much. But speaking of the Midwest, instead of a final factoid this time around, we have a taste test.
Woo!
I hold in my hands, this is Foley, I hold in my hands 2 candy bars that we picked up from a candy bar emporium in the Midwest, or actually it was not, but it was in West Virginia that we picked these up, but they are from the Midwest and they've been mentioned on the show many times. Mm-hmm. One of them is a salted nut roll.
Salted nut roll.
And one of them is a Zagnut bar.
Ooh.
Neither of them easily available where either of us lives. I think I've had both of them before, but it's been a long time and I don't think you've had either of them.
I might have had a salted nut roll, but I certainly have never had a Zagnut.
Well, let's start with the salted nut roll then.
All right.
I will.
Sounds excellent.
Sounds salty and nutty.
It's true.
Opening up, this is Foley. This is what we call when you make sound effects for the micro. Oh, it's stuck.
Oh.
Somehow driving around in 100-degree heat for a few days has made it even stickier than usual. Okay, crinkle, crinkle, crinkle.
So for those of you who have never seen a salted nut roll, it is described on the package as vanilla nougat, golden caramel, and roasted peanuts. The nougat is on the inside, wrapped with the golden caramel, and then the peanuts are all around the outside. And that's what it looks like. It looks like a big old bar of peanuts with some chewy bits.
And a weird nougaty filling. The nougat is weird.
Yeah. The
Not
nougat
bad.
is weird. No. I was expecting it to be more like the Milky Way nougat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's much creamier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Good job. Pearson's or whoever
Totally.
you are. Okay. Then we
The
got
nuts could have been saltier even.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not too unhappy. Now we've got the Zagnut.
Mm-hmm.
Crunchy peanut butter, toasted coconut is what the package says.
Mm-hmm.
How
Oh
would
my
you
gosh.
describe this bar?
It looks like the inside of a Butterfinger before you put the chocolate on the outside. Oh, but not the inside. It looks like flaky peanut butter on the inside, kind of, and then with the coconutty, but it's kind
powdery
of an
outside.
orange outside. But yeah, it totally looks like a Butterfinger before you put chocolate on it on the outside, and then the inside is slightly darker and browner.
All right, let's give it a try.
Uh-huh. Oh my gosh! It tastes like a Butterfinger without the chocolate.
Yeah.
Oh, there's that coconut.
There's a coconut.
Woo!
Took a second.
Yeah.
It was sort of squishier inside than a Butterfinger usually is for me.
Oh.
I don't have them that often, but
I think it's because it's thinner than a Butterfinger usually is. The inside of the Butterfinger is generally a little bit thicker. Yeah. Oh, Butterfinger is one of my favorite candies too. This is so good.
You just love getting stuff in your teeth?
Obviously.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah, I'm down with the Zagnut. Why aren't they distributed here?
They might be in some places. Well, the Zagnut bar, they were both good.
Turns out they're both candy. They're both sweet.
But neither are chocolate.
That is so true. Seems like some of my favorite candy bars are related to this, but with chocolate.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, take away that vanilla nougat, wrap it in chocolate. It's like a Snickers bar.
Yeah, these were very nice. Mm-hmm. And now next time we watch an MST3K and they talk about a Zagnut bar or a salted nut roll,
we're down.
We've had it. We've got the mouthfeel now.
Yep, I got that mouthfeel. Woo!
I guess we have an episode title. If you've ever been affected by the issues on this show, if you too cried during Armageddon, or if you'd like to ask us anything, get in touch with us. Our email is info@itsjustashow.com, and we'd love to hear from you. And this show is made possible by listeners like you, and like our randomly selected supporter, Matthew. Thank you, Matthew. For as little as $1 an episode, you can be like Matthew and you can help us research and record this show. You can help us afford our next Zagnut bar, and you can join us in a friendly Discord. And you can even listen to all our superfan bonus bits. Find out more at itsjustashow.com/Patreon or patreon.com/itsjustashow. And if you want to follow up with anything we mentioned today, you'll find links in our show notes at itsjustashow.com/episode/156. Well, candy bar mouth.
That was a delicious episode, Chris.
Yeah.
But I don't know what we're going to be able to have as our accompanying food for our next movie.
Oh, well, good news. We'll be doing season 1, episode 5, The Corpse Vanishes.
Oh, let's not have a food accompaniment for that.
All right. It's also got a Radar Men from the Moon short.
Oh, you know I love Commando Cody. Is this the next one after he was in the cave that was melting all around him?
This will be episode 3. So
maybe.
Yes. It's the next one that we haven't done anyways. Because we skipped. I don't remember what we're doing. I don't remember what we've done lately. It's okay. Oh my God, I got the burps. Oh wow. Okay. We got to stop. We got to stop this. All right. Well, that is going to be what we're going to watch next time. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I think. Either way, until next time.
Hello, people of Earth.
This is a podcast of my own design. Take it away, Theme Squad. 1, 2, 3. Ba-da, 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 ba-da. Bow!